And we're back. Look, the day of conversation continues, and I'm back on camera. I don't know what happened there on the last feed, but we're making it happen, making things happen. I'm really excited for this next conversation. We have done a lot of work with Feast over the years, and we lead two support groups, or I guess three support groups actually, but we've got support groups for siblings and also support groups for caregivers. And it's just an amazing opportunity to be able to bring our organizations together and offer this resource to the community. And now today we're going to talk a little bit more about how we can support the loved ones in our lives and support siblings in our lives who might be struggling with an eating disorder. But before we get that started, I would love to go around and let this amazing panel go ahead and introduce themselves. So Jenny, it looks like you're up first on my screen if you wanted to get this party started.
Sure. Thank you, Jason. I'm Jenny Gaines, and I am the Director of Programs and Services at Feast. And I have the pleasure of getting to work as a volunteer, as a caregiver support group leader, and then work with Georgie, Sunday, and Sarah as sibling support group leaders and a caregiver support group leader. And I love it.
All right, we'll go ahead and pass it off to Georgie.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, I'm Georgie. I am Jenny's daughter, so that we have that is important to say. But I've been involved with leading the sibling support group for about 2 years now, and absolutely love it. So I come with the experience of having a younger sister recovered from anorexia.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Georgie. I will go ahead and pass it off to Sunday now.
Awesome. Thanks, Jason. Hi, everyone. And I am also a sibling support group leader with Georgie. My sister was diagnosed with anorexia about 3.5 years ago. So that's the experience that I bring to group. And it has been such a privilege and honor to be a part of this group. So I'm super happy to be here today.
Awesome. Well, thank you for everything you're doing. And last but not least, we'll go ahead and let Sarah introduce yourself. Let's see. Oh, Sarah, it doesn't look like we can hear you. I know Sarah mentioned that she was having some connection issues. There we go. Oh.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I'm having connection issues. I might just drop off. Oh, good. Okay. If it keeps going, I'll back up. I just want to share that I'm a caregiver support group leader. My daughter was diagnosed at 14 with anorexia, and we powered through family-based treatment to get her well and into solid recovery. And it's really been rewarding to be part of the caregiver support groups where we can sort of share that hope and the experience and just really be in a space with others who share the same experience.
Yeah. Well, thank you. So yeah, let's get this conversation started. One of the first things that comes to mind when I think about an eating disorder is the fact that it impacts the entire household. It impacts the entire family. And that's why it's so important that we be here to support the caregivers and to support the siblings and the loved ones, because they might not be experiencing an eating disorder, but if you love somebody who's experiencing an eating disorder, it can be very painful. It can be a very difficult, challenging, distressing time. So I was just wondering if anyone would like to, kind of start maybe speaking about your own personal experience with that, or just kind of what you've seen with an eating disorder really impacting the house or the family.
I can definitely speak to that. I don't want to jump in front of anyone, but when you say it impacts the whole family, it really does. And it impacts it in ways that I don't think anyone can possibly anticipate. I think for me, that was one of the hardest things, is that I felt so confident that I was doing such a great job as a mom. And suddenly I felt like I lost my confidence when my daughter got ill. And I learned very quickly that it had nothing to do with me. It was not my fault. And that was very helpful. But at the same time, I looked at how all of us were just really worried about her. And it took me a while to learn that I had to really prioritize my own mental health in order to be able to be there for her. And if anything, I think the family has grown closer and has learned that all of us have to help each other and help ourselves at the same time. And so it's as hard as it was also one of the biggest growth experiences that I and my family, I think, have ever had. And so I'm really, really grateful. And I'm especially grateful for the community that I found at Feast and all the other caregivers that had gone ahead of me.
I would like to add on to that as one of the other children in that family. I would agree with what my mom said, that we did grow tighter and closer through this experience, even though it was a really difficult one. And so for anyone who's going through this right now, no matter which side of the eating disorder you're on, there is hope that the family relationships can stay really strong and even get stronger. A lot of times it feels like you're losing that connection with your loved one, but we are, all here today to tell you that you can absolutely maintain that and grow that connection again. So I think as you were talking, Jason, like that was the main thing that popped into my head, is like really emphasizing that message. And also I think it affects everyone else in the family unit by you kind of like start to feel like your stuff just isn't important, and objectively outside of it, like, of course that's not true. We all have things going on in our lives that are still important, but it's hard to celebrate the little things. It's hard to even be upset about your own personal things you have going on when you see how much your sibling, in my case, is suffering. So I think having peers and having a community like in Feast through ANAD helps you take time for that. And that's really important also in maintaining that sibling relationship, is, like my mom said, taking that space for yourself as well.
I would love to add on to that, because I was just talking with my kids about, there was a moment when we had one child with a birthday that we really wanted to celebrate, and my sick child couldn't get through lunch. We were having a really hard moment. And it would have been easy to just say, oh, we'll do the birthday a different time. We're just going to focus on my kid that really needs help and is struggling. And instead we made kind of a big deal about the sister having a birthday, and maybe we can rally. And my daughter, who was she was having a tough moment, but she kind of drew on that love for her sister to get herself out of that moment, so we could all go on in our day. And holding that space for the siblings, for the kids who aren't sick, really can help our loved ones with the eating disorder get well too, because those bonds that you form when you're little kids don't go away just because of the illness. It's all still, it's under there somewhere.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, beautifully said, all of you. I think the thing I would like to add on is that what I've learned through the incredible experience of being part of a support group is how, first of all, we're not alone in these experiences that we're talking about. And that is one of the most life-changing parts about group. And then also what I've heard from siblings who have come to support group is that they're unsure of their role and their place in treatment for their sibling. Should they continue to be a sibling and try to distract their sibling through it, or should they help? We talk a lot about like the sibling code, where you don't tell the parents something that the sibling has done usually, but maybe sometimes you have to break that sibling code out of love and care. And I've just been blown away by how much these people who come to sibling group care about their siblings, and they want to support their siblings. And often our reminder is, and make sure that you're taking care of yourself too. And I think that cliche of like putting your mask on in the airplane before others is, it can't be emphasized enough in this setting. And I was actually just reading through some notes that that I took during one of our support groups, and we ended it by asking, what's something good that came out of treatment? And I just read over a few of the responses, and one of them was this sweet attendee who was saying, like, my sister didn't complain when she ate a piece of bread at dinner, and inwardly my heart was celebrating. And we were just kind of discussing how these mundane things become so beautiful through treatment. So there's a lot of like good and challenge at the same time.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing all of that. One of the things that I've traveled around and spoke to many audiences, and one question in particular really resonated with me, and it was a mom who has a daughter who's battling an eating disorder, and She was crying and just wanted to know what she could do to fix this. How could she fix this problem? And I think it's so hard because for so many of us, that's what we want to do. We just want to step in and fix it. And it's really hard because with an eating disorder, it's not that easy. You just can't fix things. So what advice would you give to family members out there who are supporting a loved one right now? And they so badly do, they just want to fix it, but they know that they can't.
Sarah, do you want to go? I don't want to step in front. Do you want to answer?
I have lots of thoughts. I'm sure you do too. That you're so right. That desire to fix it is really big, and that wish for. I always joke that when my kids have a virus, I always hope it's strep throat because you can go and get the medicine and you're well. And there's just not a magic pill that makes this go away. And the feast community, I really do feel helped me find the little pieces of the puzzle that I could build into getting her fixed. And fixed isn't the right word, but that I could get her to strong recovery. All of those skills that I learned in that group and every book I read, you can empower yourself. And I think that goes back to what they told us kind of in the early days in the hospital. As parents, when your child is sick, even with an eating disorder, that wisdom inside you is in there to help them get well. You know how to take care of your child. You know how to feed them. Though eating disorder recovery is like living in the upside down and nothing is intuitive, you intuitively know what they need, and you can draw on that wisdom to help them get well. So even though it's really hard, I would tell parents to trust themselves and support themselves with as many experts as they can.
Yeah, I love all that you said, Sarah. The word empower, I think is really key that you were just expressing. I think taking the burden off of every parent's shoulders, that they have the responsibility to, quote, fix. It would be just a really great message to hear in the beginning. Some of us are so overly responsible, at least we feel we are overly responsible for every single thing that happens to our families. And for me, the eating disorder taught me not only could I not fix my daughter's eating disorder, truly, I can't fix anybody's anything. And that's not my role, but I can empower myself. I can become very knowledgeable about eating disorders. I can get really good at managing my own distress so that I can show up as the mom that my daughter needs when she's distressed. And I think turning the focus to how can we respond in a way that's not reactive, respond in a way that's helpful, respond in a way that maximizes their potential to do well in treatment and to get to recovery and stay in recovery. No fixing is required.
I love that. Thank you. Yeah, I could just erase the word fix from this whole thing, but it is definitely something that, I think comes to people's minds throughout it. I'm a problem solver. I love to jump in and solve problems, and it's so difficult when you can't very easily. So one of the things we kind of talked about at the beginning of this conversation that I want to dive into a little bit more is just the power of community and being able to connect with other individuals who have similar experiences. Every experience is different, but we have those common bonds and those common things that we've shared. And I think that our support groups really set up for that community, whether it's siblings or caregivers. So I would love to hear both, like from a sibling perspective and also from a caregiver perspective. Why is community so important?
I feel personally like Sunday should jump in because she always just communicates about community so eloquently. So I'm going to put you on the spot, Sunday.
Oh, thanks, Georgie. Well, I think when you were asking the question, Jason, I went back into the very beginning phases of treatment when we were just, the beginning is often one of the darkest times where you just feel there's this huge unknown and you don't know how to proceed and you don't know if you're doing things right. And you're kind of trying to build up that kind of intuition that we were talking about, where you're like, I think that this is the right thing to do, but it feels really scary. And I remember there were days where and I tell this story in group a lot. I was so stressed out, I just started playing Angry Birds, a game on my phone, because I couldn't do anything else. I just needed to regulate myself. And I felt a little bit ashamed, because I think we often say like, oh, get off your phone, stop spending time on your screen. It's embarrassing. I'm like in my 20s playing this app made for children, whatever. But I joined this community of other siblings. It was my first time going to a support group, and it was me and all of these siblings who were 8 and 9 and 12 years old. And the minute I told them, I'm going to admit I've been playing Angry Birds to cope, all of their faces lit up. And we were able to kind of help each other understand that sometimes you have to do things out of the ordinary to get through these challenging times. And so I don't know if that fully answers the question, besides that being a part of community helps you just feel validated that what you're going through is not a solitary situation. So yeah. And Georgie, I kind of want to throw it back to you, because I think you would have great things to add.
Yeah, thank you, Sunday. I was hoping you were going to tell that story, because every time you do, I think it just illustrates how powerful this experience is in its ability to connect people. Even though when you're in it, like, you do feel so isolated, you feel like it's tearing things apart, and then you find a space like what ANAD and Feast offers, and you realize that there are a lot of commonalities happening. And we see it in our support groups. We have a cap, or like an age minimum of 13 years, but we have people ages 13 through their 60s and 70s who come to group as siblings. And it's incredible to see how these people, who really on paper like couldn't be more different, have such similar experiences. Like someone will start talking and end it with, if that makes sense, or I don't know if anyone else has experienced that. And you just can see on Zoom, like, everybody's nodding along. And even if you haven't experienced exactly the same, is my audio messing up? Okay, it got a little funky on my end for a second. Sorry, y'all. But even if it's not exactly the same experience, even if my sister didn't go through like similar treatments or similar stages in her recovery process, there's always something that we connect with, and it helps us understand ourselves, and it helps us understand our siblings better. It helps us empathize with ourselves and with each other. And there's not a single group that I get to attend that I don't feel grateful for and more connected, just like with being alive when I leave, to be quite frank. So it is probably the most powerful positive force I can think of in this situation is community.
And I was just going to add that I think if we ever ask at the end of a support group, in the caregiver support group, what are you taking away? I would say 90% of the time the answer is community, or a sense of community, or I feel less alone, thank you. And I think that just kind of shows how important peer support is. I know when I first started the eating disorder journey, I did feel very alone and very isolated, and I found Feast, and it was like an immediate online community, and that was powerful in and of itself. But watching the caregivers who were all at different phases of their journey together, supporting each other and connecting in just a really profound way, in a deep way, in a trusting way, it is beautiful to watch. And you can tell that it's helping because they keep coming back. And being a part of that is just a real privilege. I think Sunday said that at the beginning, a real honor and a real privilege. And it's amazing to see the strength of these families and just how much they love their loved ones.
I agree with everything you're all saying. I think, sorry. I was just going to add that
I'm going to be quiet.
I haven't been doing this as long as Jenny. I've only been doing this for like 9 months now, I think. But seeing people come back at different stages of their journey to continue participating in a group because they both want to share back with others about the victories, the small victories they're seeing in their kids, or they want to problem solve something new and they know this is a good community to do it in. And then having people farther down in the journey, encouraging and lifting up people that are brand new. That it's just such a warm, supportive feeling in a situation that can otherwise feel so cold and isolating. Our whole society is built around diet, and it makes you feel a little bit upside down on the eating disorder journey. And these communities just make you feel heard. And it's been a wonderful thing to be part of.
Yeah, the one thing that I'm definitely going to take away from this conversation is I think I forgot just how important community is for all of us. Because for so long I've thought, as somebody with an eating disorder, it's been so nice to find that community because it's so isolating that you don't realize that the people around you also need to find that community to support them, because they can't support me unless they've got support themselves. So I think one major takeaway from this conversation is that we all need community. We all deserve community, and luckily our organizations are helping to create that space. I would love for you to share a little bit more about the work that Feast is doing, anything that's on the horizon, how folks can get connected with Feast.
Oh, thank you for that, Jason. Yes. Feast has a very important big event coming up, so I'm going to use this chance to plug it. It's called Feast of Knowledge. It's on March 23rd. It's a Sunday. It's coming up. It's an all-day virtual conference. It is some of the top experts in the eating disorder field bringing really important topics to caregivers. It's $60 to register. But if for any reason you are a caregiver and you want to attend and you're not able to, you can reach out to Feast. The website is Feast, FEAST hyphen, no, I said that wrong. feast-ed.org. So Feast, the word feast, -ed.org. You would think that would be the easiest thing for me to remember. But it's going to be a really special event because we have an add-on special feature this year. And Georgie is going to be there along with another one of our sibling support group leaders, Jake. And we're actually going to have a mini sibling support group session. So anyone who registers for Feast of Knowledge and they have a sibling of someone with an eating disorder that's 13 and up, they can come to this special event for sibling support group leaders. But for siblings. We're going to also have topics, things like setting boundaries, which are really important for caregivers, how to deal with caregiver stress and trauma. And the Feast website itself has a whole lot of programs and services, email support. You can find our support group times and registration on there. And we have something called a caregiver skill toolkit and Feast 30 days to plug a few more things. But I hope you'll really consider coming to Feast of Knowledge on March 23rd.
Excellent. Yeah, and we will share all of that information out too with everybody who's watching right now. Even if you're watching the recording, we'll make sure there's a link that everybody can find that information. So before we wrap up the conversation today, I've been trying to make a point of asking everybody who's joined me, what is one thing you want everybody who's listening right now to know about an eating disorder? So I'll let each one of you kind of think for a minute there about the one thing, and then whoever's ready to go, feel free to jump in. I love it. Everybody.
Okay, I have one. I know. We always do this in group too, where we'll try to do like a checkout question, and then it's like we're all gonna sit and think about it for a second, and then sometimes the silence are like, it's been too long, someone's just gonna have to jump in. But I was trying to think of one, and then think of one that didn't come to mind immediately, because I feel like there are probably, it's good that messages are getting repeated, but I was trying to think of something like a little bit deeper too. So I think the one thing I would want everyone to know is that there really is no weird in eating disorders. A lot of times siblings come to group and they'll share a specific thing that their sibling's going through and think that that is somehow unusual for eating disorders. And they do present in a lot of like ways that can be atypical by the textbook, but there really is nothing extra wrong with you when you're experiencing an eating disorder. You have an eating disorder. there are a lot of different things that can come along with that, but there is not something like uniquely wrong about you or about your sibling because they're experiencing X, Y, or Z. So adding that like extra level of shame or stigma that can sometimes come with that, just dispel that, get rid of it, because that doesn't help anyone work towards recovery. And there just is no weird. It's all part of the territory, and it's all something that you can deal with, even though it's really hard.
And I think I would say one thing about an eating disorder. I mean, something that was unexpected for me that stands out is just that it is kind of like a perfect storm of genetic and environmental risk factors. And it's going to be different for every single person, and every single person's journey is going to be different. And that's part of it. And just knowing that it's not anyone's fault. No one is to blame. It's not because you didn't receive something in your childhood or something like that, for any caregivers who are watching and feeling like maybe you did or didn't do something. It's just a really unique combination of some kind of complex factors, and it's different for everyone.
Wow. Well said, both of you. Hard to follow up after that. I think my first thought was that I think maybe the word assumptions came up, and I guess like this is something that I'm still working on, is just getting rid of assumptions in life in general about others, and you know, judgment of others and ourselves. But I think often there are a lot of people who don't know much or don't have experience with eating disorders who will be like, oh, eating disorders are genetic, like Jenny said, or oh, blank person can have an eating disorder. And I think what I'm concerned, or what I want to like spread the word about, is just that like you can never assume that someone does or doesn't have an eating disorder. They can be very silent and hidden, and they look different. There are infinite ways that an eating disorder looks, so there's no way to tell. And I think maybe I'm frustrated about living in that world where it's like all about diet culture, and so my message is just like, stop assuming things, and maybe if we can all work on our own body neutrality, maybe we can treat others with that as well.
All right. Well, thank you all so much for joining me this afternoon to have this conversation. Let's see. We will go ahead and wrap this one up. I know we've got another conversation coming up next with Kristen. I've got to log off because now I'm off to University of Colorado to speak tonight. So if you feel like sticking around, I should still have a voice by that point. I hope so. But again, Jenny, Georgie, and Sunday, thank you so much for joining us today. And thank you for all the incredible work that you're doing.
Thank you, Jason.
Thank you.
Thank you.